Andy Teacher is actually from the Cut Tourism VAT campaign, joining us live on BBC Radio Solent this morning. Morning, Andy.
Morning, Julian.
Thanks for being there this morning. So who set this all up? Was it the tourism industry or the politicians or what?
It's been set up by the industry, really, in response to the fact that we are so uncompetitive against Europe, as you said in your introduction there. And just some of those numbers again. We've done some modelling with this using a very prominent economist even, one of the boffins that the government uses, and he's concluded that this would create 120,000 new jobs across the country. It would generate £4 billion windfall for GDP, and it would revitalise a lot of areas right across the country that have really fallen away over the years. And yes, it would cost the government about £1.5 billion in year one in lost VAT receipts, but quite a lot of that money, almost half of that money lost in the first year, would be gained in other areas. So this would eventually pay the Treasury back in only about 3 years, and that's pretty quick.
And would it after that then actually give the Treasury more back than it lost?
Yes, so it would be profitable.
So
it would generate. They would be making a £4 billion profit on this. So we're not even asking for a tax cut. We're asking them to take a 3-year view. If you're a businessman, anyone on the South Coast that's set up a business, taking a 3-year view, that's hardly a long time, is it? You know what I mean? And that's what we're saying, is that all along the South and much of Britain's coastal community are, these guys are doing brilliant jobs, but we're stifled by a net of uncompetitivity. And that's what we're saying.
Let's find out what our audience think. Because before we go any further, Andy, and there's lots of questions to ask you, have a listen. We've been out doing some street interviews this morning. Our reporter Steve's been out asking people the simple question, should VAT on tourism be cut to 5% in the UK? Have a listen.
Yeah, certainly. Obviously, like places like Weymouth and Dorchester and places like that, they need that type of business. It's very important too, because obviously Europe have aligned with this already, and UK is one of the only countries that hasn't so far. I think it's very important to do so, yeah.
Well, any tax break is a positive, isn't it, for anybody who's self-employed, got their own business or any kind of business, so yeah, I would support that.
Well, definitely, yes, that would be a really great idea, actually. If we can actually stay here, we've got lovely weather right now, so people want to stay, plus if the companies can actually put the prices down, that would be great.
And when you go on holiday, have you been kind of put off staying in this country by the price of things compared to abroad?
Yeah, absolutely, especially obviously from the actual hotels and actually going out and funding it, it works out cheaper to go abroad by the time you've added all up, so yeah, absolutely.
To be honest, if I was going to spend money to go on holiday, I'd go abroad. Like you said, on a day-to-day basis, if you went out for lunch on holiday, you're spending half the amount that you would over here. And I know that because my family are over from Cyprus at the moment. And my dad was like, I literally would just go for a lunchtime drink and a sandwich with my wife, and I'm paying double the amounts to do just general day-to-day activities than you would normally do when you're in abroad. So if I was going to spend money, I'd go on holiday abroad.
It's not really about the prices, I think it's about the weather. So I can always count for a good weather on a continent. It's good actually to go out somewhere else, I think.
So apart from the last guy, Andy, who says it's the weather, not the VAT rate, I think everyone else agreeing with you.
Yeah, but he makes a good point, doesn't he? Because that's the other thing. It's bad time to say it at the minute because we've got glorious 25-degree weather. But it's a good point he makes, and the reason why that is because we're at a competitive disadvantage because of the weather. So from the starting blocks, we're at a competitive disadvantage, and this government, George Osborne, refuses to lift a tax disadvantage as well, and that's the whole point. Is it just we need a dose of reality here, and what the companies have said is they would pass through a tax break. So if the government did cut VAT on accommodation and attractions from 20% to 5%, companies would lower their prices.
Now, that's the next question, because a number of people are asking me, where do you draw the line about the VAT and who counts as tourism and who doesn't? So you're saying is every night in a hotel everywhere at 5%? Or just on the seaside, or how do you decide?
It's quite straightforward, just quite simple. So it'd be touristic, so accommodation. So that could be whether you're on holiday, it could be whether you're on a business conference, an away day, a stag do, whatever it might be. Accommodation in a hotel or any kind of tourist accommodation. So it could be a theme park hotel or holiday let or something like that. And tourist attractions. So museums don't pay VAT at the minute. Most of them are considered exempt from that. Charities are obviously exempt from that. But attractions, so that could be theme parks, sea life centres, any of those sorts of things. and the reason why companies will cut their prices is because of the increased footfall that it will generate. So if things are cheaper, more people will go to them, and they'll have to employ more staff, which generates more in national insurance, more in income tax payments for the government, and that's where all of this £4 billion windfall will be generated from.
So other hotels are available, but the Travel Lodge in Luton is 5%, as well as the B&B on Bournemouth seafront.
That's correct, providing the B&B is a big enough business that it's in the VAT
Indeed.
regime. So some that are small businesses won't pay that if they're tiny one-man bands, but most, anything over a medium size will do. So, and again, that's right across the board. And what we're simply saying is it's better for all businesses if people are here having their holidays. So if people are staying in hotels, if they're going to attractions, it means they're buying petrol, it means they're going out for lunch, it means they might buy a present for the kids on the way home, and all these other things that are incidental, that are indirect, that you can't necessarily measure, that could be beneficial. So what we'd like is for your listeners to get in touch with their local MPs, get them writing letters to Mr Osborne and to the Labour Party and to the Lib Dems and other respective parties and call on them to make this.
I've got that, Andy. I've got some more questions about where it applies, because if I don't ask you now when you've gone, someone will ask me and I won't know the answer. So how about a restaurant right on the beach with accommodation above it? Will the meal in the restaurant be 20% or 5%?
We're talking solely about the accommodation and the entrance fees, so not about anything else. So we're not talking about helping make booze cheaper or anything like that. We're simply talking about helping the accommodation and the attractions entry side of things. So that will obviously benefit businesses that have different bits. So, for instance, we spoke to some farmers at the weekend, and obviously the businesses, the accommodation isn't always the centrepiece of that, but it's an add-on. So people that might have a hotel as part of their business will benefit from that.
And if you run a temporary attraction, and I mentioned this because on Friday we were doing a whole show about country and county shows, and we have a lot of them down here, and big numbers, like, the Tarrington Steam Fair, hundreds of thousands of people turn up for that. New Forest show last week, 100,000. Would they be VAT at 5% because they're an attraction?
Yes, no, totally, and that's what we're trying to. We're trying to generate footfall. We're trying to keep people in Great Britain. At the minute, it's ludicrous that the government is incentivising people. As if we're not incentivised enough by the weather in Greece and Spain. They're incentivised by a ludicrous tax system. Finally,
the cross-party side of this, just explain how that happened. Have you had MPs from all the parties approach you, or did you approach them?
Well, it's been a bit of both, to be honest. So obviously we've been going around the country speaking to lots of MPs and politicians over the last couple of months, and the overriding response is pretty positive. You go to see an MP in a coastal constituency and you say, would you like to supporting business in your coastal constituency, Mr MP or Mrs MP or Ms MP? And they generally say yes. So we're at the point now where we've got over 80 MPs from all political parties, but unfortunately we've still not had a positive response from either the Conservatives or Labour. The Lib Dems in Wales have basically committed to putting it in their party manifesto. The Conservative Party simply still trying to fob us off by saying it will cost too much, even though obviously we've used their own modelling, we've used the own Treasury economic model to prove that it won't, and Labour seem in disarray and don't seem to have responded at all. So, but we've got individual MPs from each party, every single party, from the Green Party to the Tories, Labour and Lib Dems, all supporting this.
Okay.
But at a party national level, we're still waiting for the Conservatives and Labour to show that they do support coastal businesses and do support the tourist sector.
And just to clarify, it's cost neutral or actually beneficial after 3 years to the Treasury?
Correct. It's beneficial, so it makes money for the government. So the government will make £4 billion, 120,000 new jobs. And I think the crucial other point is that with youth unemployment nationally at around 18%, tourism is the sector that employs the most young people. So this is a political problem we've had for years, a social problem we've had for years. The tourist sector can help to support, and this is another very, very good reason why.
And will they pay more than the minimum wage? Because let's be honest, lots of people in tourism don't get paid an awful lot. Is this just going to create 120,000 people all earning £8,000 a year?
Not at all. There's people of all kinds in the tourist sector. There are people that are on casual contracts that are studying, but there are also engineers, managers. You think how complicated it is to build a theme park, right? Those things aren't built by people on £8 an hour. They're built by the same engineers and the same qualified structural experts that build aeroplanes. And that's the thing I think we forget about. We dismiss tourism as being
Andy?
just a sector full of bombing, but it's actually one of the biggest employers of not just young people but people across the country.
Let me ask the question. I know what your answer is going to be, but I'm asking all the listeners today this question: should VAT on tourism be cut to 5%? And the one-word answer is
Tomorrow.
Hey, right. I take that as a yes as well. Andy, thanks for being there.